I never imagined that shame could feel so physical, like a presence pressing down on my shoulders, while the crowd around me laughed. The wedding should have been a celebration, a moment to seal happiness and hope. But there I stood alone by the tall arch I had built with my own hands, invisible to most and ridiculed by the rest. The sky was a patchwork of shifting colors as dusk settled, a cold autumn breeze slipping under my rented tuxedo. I gripped a tepid champagne flute, trying not to spill it as my arm quivered, feeling every gaze evaluate me and cast me aside. I overheard Amber, my wife's sister, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she said to a nearby cousin, "Some people just attend these events thinking they're important, but really they're just background." She looked over at me, letting our eyes meet for just a moment before turning back and laughing with her group. The cruelty of her words hit harder than anyone else's, because Amber wasn't satisfied with exclusion. She orchestrated humiliation. "Did Jamie really think he was going to be the star tonight?" she asked, making sure other guests heard, using my name to make the insult sharper and more public. Even the band seemed to play a little louder, their rhythm amplifying the awkwardness, forcing me to stand out like a misplaced prop. In that painful instant, I felt each person at the wedding as more than a face. Every movement was a judgment, every whisper a verdict. I wanted to disappear, but couldn't. Running would only cement Amber's narrative, and I refused to give her that victory. My mind spun back to the days before, to soft hopes Megan and I nurtured in our shared apartment as we planned the wedding. Megan, my anchor and light, would sit next to me on our battered couch with wedding magazines, her feet resting on my lap. She'd point out centerpieces made from wildflowers, the way she dreamed of soft golden light filtering beneath the oak tree behind the venue. "This is going to be perfect," she'd say, grinning, her cheeks flushed from laughter. Together we faced every obstacle. Tight budgets, skeptical family, my long hours at work. I spent late nights in the garage sanding lumber for the arch, carefully measuring and reassembling old beams salvaged from my father's fence. Each splinter that stung my skin felt like an act of devotion. Megan would bring me iced tea, wrap her arms around my shoulders and whisper how proud she was, mapping out every little detail for the ceremony with meticulous notes. Her optimism kept fatigue at bay. We ate cheap takeout on the kitchen floor, poring over guest lists and debating seating arrangements, a single strand of twinkling lights illuminating our exhaustion. That night she told me we'd build something beautiful, not just for that one day, but for all our days ahead. Those dreams quickly collided with reality whenever Amber inserted herself into conversation. Amber wasn't simply opinionated, she dominated family meetings, steering every plan her way, dismissing most suggestions as amateur. "No offense, Jamie, but we should leave real decor to professionals," she'd say, not bothering to hide her disdain as she scrolled through her phone, showing Megan pictures of grand weddings in glossy magazines. Still, I persisted. We couldn't afford professional planners or extravagant flowers. Instead, I learned how to fold napkins into intricate designs after watching hours of tutorials. I spent weekends driving across the city to pick up rental chairs and second-hand lanterns, returning home with sore muscles and the satisfaction of providing something Megan deeply wanted. Amber's constant interference only made me more determined to prove my worth, not just as Megan's partner, but as someone capable of rising above doubt and criticism. Commitment became sacrifice. I skipped calls from old friends, missed my 10-year college reunion, stayed late at my job to save every dollar possible. I sold my vintage baseball cards, my most personal collection, and put the money toward Megan's dream dress. I gave up a promotion at work, choosing instead to stay in our modest apartment close to Megan's family, thinking proximity would build trust. Every time Amber snickered about our DIY disaster, I redoubled my efforts. I wanted, more than anything, for Megan's family to accept me, maybe even love me, but Amber saw my sacrifices not as acts of devotion, but as opportunities to highlight perceived failures. There was always a moment when her cutting remarks would land especially hard, subtle jabs at my taste, open complaints that I wasn't doing enough, jokes that I was too sensitive. The signs of betrayal piled up. Small details at first. Amber would organize photo shoots and ensure I was cropped out of every image before posting them online, circulating memories that erased my presence from Megan's happiest moments. At family brunches, she shared inside jokes and secret glances, and every time I tried to join in, her energy shifted cold. Sometimes, when invitations for wedding events arrived, mine would read only Megan plus guest, as if my name somehow diminished the occasion. Megan reassured me, holding me close in the evenings, yet the sting persisted. At the rehearsal dinner, Amber seized the opportunity to make me the subject of her toast, joking, "Jamie's not technically family, but he does all the heavy lifting. We just let him carry the boxes, not make decisions." The crowd laughed, some nervously, some genuinely. My cheeks felt hot, and I looked down at my plate as Megan squeezed my hand. Her gesture was silent support, but the lack of defense echoed in my mind. Amber returned to her phone, having delivered her blow, and left me to absorb its weight alone. The next morning, Megan woke up anxious. Her cherished necklace was missing. We searched everywhere. Amber appeared at the door later, holding the necklace between her fingers. "Found it in Jamie's car. Maybe he wanted to borrow something pretty for once." Her tone was sharp, and guests smiled awkwardly, unsure whether her words masked real suspicion or were just another dig. My mouth went dry as I forced a grateful response, aware that anything I said could be twisted. The hours before the ceremony became a trial by fire. Amber arrived early at the venue, directing rental staff to move my arch into a different spot. She demanded new lantern arrangements and swapped out the playlist Megan and I had chosen. "Trust me, I'm saving the event," she announced, not seeking approval, daring anyone to challenge her authority. I watched the setup unfold, powerless as people followed her instructions. The vision Megan and I built together slipping away, replaced by Amber's version of perfection. Megan looked at me, torn. She wanted to stand up to Amber, but conflict with her only sister was a risk she dreaded. I realized in those moments that Amber's sabotage was calculated and cruel, not just exclusion, but deliberate undermining, designed to make me fail in front of everyone. That pain solidified when Amber distributed gift bags marked family only. I watched her hand out the bright packages, filled with treats and mementos, to every relative. My fingers grazed one, and Amber pulled it away, smiling with teeth barely disguised as friendly. "Sorry, Jamie. These are meaningful, maybe next time." The conversation faltered, and guests looked anywhere but at me. My isolation became spectacle, a silent narrative as powerful as any speech. Still, I didn't retreat. I borrowed dignity from discipline and breathed through the pain, stoking resolve instead of surrender. At the ceremony, Amber's voice carried as she made jokes about the arch and the lanterns. Her laughter meant for the crowd, but her gaze fixed on me. Every mistake, every off-center bow tie, misplaced light, awkward photograph became ammunition for her amusement. She wanted not just to embarrass me, but to make me participate in my own humiliation. The reception was a swirl of music, loud laughter, and glasses clinking. Amber orchestrated toasts that left me as an afterthought, rarely mentioned or dismissed with comments about helping out. A long table filled with distant relatives and old friends became the stage for her version of events. I felt adrift, my contributions erased, my voice lost in noise. Megan found me outside, her eyes red from crying after yet another one of Amber's quips. I held her close under the tree I'd thought would symbolize unity. I whispered, "It's just one day, but we have each other. That's enough." "I'm sorry," Megan sobbed. I tried to stop her, but she twists everything. "You don't deserve this. We're not made by their acceptance, not really," I said, searching for conviction in my own words. Megan nodded, pressing her face into my shoulder. Later, as the fairy lights blinked above us, I wandered through the quiet gardens, listening to muffled cheers and watching flames flicker in lanterns. The smell of sweet autumn leaves mingled with grass, the pattern of laughter and music laid out like a challenge to my resolve. Every step felt heavier but sharper. Amber danced and sang loudly, making her presence felt, her behavior wilder, fueled by the energy of controlling the evening. But I observed everything, each act, each word, each moment of manipulation, using pain as a lens to identify the root of my own suffering. Humiliation had forged in me, not brokenness, but clarity. I understood finally that Amber's victory depended on my reaction. She wanted chaos, tears, capitulation. Instead, I decided to give her calm indifference. I maintained a steady gaze, thanked everyone for coming, offered compliments and kindness, even when Amber tried to upstage me. As the night deepened, my resolve transformed from endurance to intent. I decided quietly that I would not allow her cruelty to define my memory of this day. There was power left in choice. I let the cool night air cleanse my mind and found moments of peace among the disappointment. Megan joined me outside, her hands trembling with emotion. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We start fresh tomorrow," I replied gently. "We decide what matters. We won't let her rewrite our story." Megan breathed deeply, finding reassurance in my certainty. That night, lying awake, I recounted every sacrifice, every exclusion and wound, cataloguing reasons I deserved justice, not vengeance, but fairness. The pain burned less now. It became fuel for what I needed to do next. Dawn crept over the horizon with pale light. I packed away hurt and let determination rise in its place. This was the beginning of the turning point. My counterattack would be measured, strategic, seeking not to hurt Amber, but to reclaim my dignity and the respect we both deserved. The wheels of change slowly began to turn in my mind, and I vowed never again to be voiceless against injustice. The sun rose on our first day as a married couple. Despite the exhaustion woven into my bones, I felt a strange clarity, a sense that what happened next would determine the true story of our wedding, not the humiliations orchestrated by Amber. Megan was still asleep in the hotel suite, her hair a tangled halo on the pillow. I watched her breathe, each inhale and exhale knitting my resolve a little stronger. The world outside was gentle for a moment, and I let myself remember why any of this began, why love compelled me to sacrifice, to endure, and now to act. Around 7, I slipped out to fetch coffee and thoughtful pastries for Megan. In the hallway, the remnants of celebration were everywhere. Scattered petals, the faint echo of laughter, a forgotten boutonniere. Each item felt heavy with memory, carrying disappointment, but also possibility. I quietly gathered the items, not wanting housekeepers to erase the evidence of what we fought for. Downstairs, the breakfast room buzzed with guests and family, some sluggish from too much wine, others animated by wedding stories. Amber was already there, perched at the head of a long table, her posture rigid and voice unmistakable. If anything, her confidence seemed bolstered overnight. She recounted tales of victory, how she saved the ceremony from disaster, and insisted people thank her for the transformed venue. Listening from across the room, I realized that Amber's influence thrived on silence. The only way forward was to respectfully, quietly, reclaim those moments. I approached the table, offering coffee to each person and smiling despite nerves. Amber arched a brow when I served her, as if testing for cracks in my composure, but I gave her none. "Thank you for helping yesterday," I said. She shrugged, sensing no confrontation yet. Conversation shifted to the slideshow Megan and I wanted to share that evening, a visual journey of our story, behind the scenes, the laughter, the real connections. Amber tried to dismiss the idea, her tone minimizing, but I gently asserted, we prepared this for everyone, to celebrate what we built together. Guests nodded, drawn by the promise of inclusion. The day unfolded in small gestures, me spending time with the youngest cousins coloring wedding scenes, Megan's grandfather telling long stories of his first years in the country, her mother quietly thanking me for taking care of Megan through the chaos. These moments, trivial in isolation, formed a shield against Amber's narrative. I saw for the first time that my worth wasn't determined by her approval. Late morning, Megan and I gathered original photos and videos from phones and cameras, carefully assembling the wedding slideshow. I restored every image Amber had removed me from, tracking down candid shots she ignored. Me carrying chairs with cousins, Megan resting tired feet on my lap while planning centerpieces, hugs exchanged after difficult family meetings. These weren't perfect images, but they were real, charged with genuine emotion. We added captions about kindness, commitment, and the small sacrifices everyone made, making sure no one's efforts were forgotten. By mid-afternoon, tension in the hotel was palpable. News of the slideshow spread and curiosity drew relatives together. Amber busied herself with controlling the seating, insisting on certain arrangements, guiding people with authority that felt shaky. This time I stepped in. With Megan's support, we diplomatically rearranged the tables so anyone who'd felt snubbed earlier could sit among friends. Amber tried to object, but found herself outnumbered by relieved voices. I sensed the tide turning. People were ready for a story different than hers. I spent time with the caterers, expressing genuine gratitude for their hard work, paying extra for another dessert course, a sweet lemon cake Megan loved, and which had been almost cut from the budget. Their delight was contagious, spilling over into their service that night. Amber overheard and tried to belittle the gesture, but instead, guests thanked me and the cooks personally, sharing their favorite moments. An hour before dinner, Megan and I rehearsed the slideshow narration. My hands shook as I edited the script, but Megan placed her hand over mine, giving me silent encouragement. "Let's tell the truth," she whispered. "Let's show them what really matters." The dinner began with laughter and music, guests relaxed and eager for stories. When the slideshow started, the room fell quiet. Megan's voice began, weaving tales of resilience, how we built the arch ourselves, the night we designed lanterns until dawn, the last-minute cake rescue. Images flashed by, each one richer because it wasn't perfect. Megan, exhausted but beaming, me wiping flour from my chin after baking test cookies, kids tangled in ribbons as we decorated. I spoke next, my voice steadier than expected. I thanked each person who contributed, noting how Megan's mother collected wildflowers, how the cousins helped haul chairs in the rain, and even how Amber's ideas sometimes pushed us to improvise creatively. When the final photos played, the ones Amber had erased or edited, I quietly restored myself to the memory, grateful for every chance to learn humility. In my narration, I said, "We built this wedding together, and even mistakes taught us something about family." A ripple moved through the crowd, relief, recognition, and something like forgiveness. Amber's face was a study in confusion and discomfort. Her authority, once total, appeared fragile. She tried to insert herself with a toast, standing at the end of the table and raising her glass. We all make mistakes, some bigger than others. Sometimes the best thing to do is let professionals handle things. A hush followed. I stood slowly, resting my hand on Megan's shoulder for courage, and addressed everyone. Mistakes were made, yes, but what's more important is that we grow, not withdraw. Sometimes the urge to control comes from fear of being left out or not being enough. The room was utterly silent, every face fixed on mine. I looked at Amber, not with anger, but with quiet challenge. Amber, I know you wanted things to be perfect. Perfection isn't possible, but kindness is. Consider whether you offered it freely. Amber's defenses faltered. She opened her mouth, struggled, and for once had no ready reply. Megan's father stood and offered a toast of his own, thanking not only Amber but everyone, including me directly, for working so hard, for staying kind, for showing that love isn't about who controls the stage. The crowd applauded. A cousin apologized for laughing at Amber's jokes. Several guests came forward to express gratitude for my perseverance amid adversity. Amber sat abruptly, color draining from her face, a mixture of embarrassment and unexpected vulnerability. The rest of the night, people flocked to Megan and me, sharing stories we'd never heard, connecting over sacrifices and mistakes, kindness and transformation. Amber remained quiet, her group drifting away, her bravado evaporated. In the dim light of the late evening, she sought me out alone. Her posture was hesitant, her eyes wary. "I'm sorry I got lost wanting to be right. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you, and Megan." I let her words settle in the air before responding. "We all want to belong, Amber, but you can't deliver connection through exclusion." She lowered her eyes and nodded. Our conversation ended not with finality but openness, an understanding and possibility for genuine change. The next morning, Megan and I walked together in the garden, past the now faded arch and crumpled lanterns. We spoke about pain and hope, about the difference between justice and revenge. Megan thanked me for never retaliating, for saving space for healing. That small freedom, not letting humiliation define us, became the real victory. Weeks passed, and the ripples of that evening continued. Family events felt less tense. Amber, changed by her own isolation, tried to rebuild bridges not with control, but with open-hearted effort. We welcomed her, cautiously but honestly. I found that forgiveness made space for growth, and that shared laughter had a deeper resonance after surviving public shame. I learned that the approval I'd sought all this time mattered less than living according to my values. What others thought no longer dictated my peace. The final lesson came quietly, watching Megan draw sketches for our new home. "You fought for us," she whispered, "when it would have been easier to give up." I squeezed her hand. "It's not about winning, really. It's about carrying each other through the hardest moments." Now I carry that day forward not as a scar, but as a badge of resilience. Amber's attempts to humiliate me forced me to find strength beyond appearances, to honor humility and dignity, qualities that endure. If you're reading this, ask yourself, when shame is public, will you stand for kindness or be defined by the crowd? Your answer shapes more than reputation. It defines legacy. Share your story, reflect on your sacrifices, and know the bonds we forge in adversity are more powerful than the wounds inflicted by humiliation. Family isn't a bloodline. It's the courage to choose love every day without reservation.